Hello, my name's Joe. Welcome to my channel where I help you make better coffee and give you honest reviews. Today I have the Gaggia Classic Pro. I've owned it for about 5 to 6 months now. I've been using it. I've done plenty of videos on it, but it just came to my mind that I've never actually fully reviewed the machine on its own. I've only done comparisons with other machines. So I thought, why not take a chance before we, maybe let the Gaggia Classic go, let it be with somebody else. We would do a full review of the espresso machine. But before we get into that, why don't you go ahead and hit the like button if you can, subscribe to my channel, it helps me out a ton. Thank you. Okay, so how I'm gonna structure this video is we're gonna go pros, cons, I'm gonna make a shot of espresso with this, do a kind of a taste test and tell you my thoughts on it, especially after the time of using it so much. And then I'm also gonna give you my final thoughts. So let's go ahead and get into the pros. So the first up with the pros is generally the build quality is pretty good on the espresso machine. You get, a full size portafilter. You get it, it's very nicely built. It's a nice heavy steel quality build. The frame around it is all, stainless steel. It's a nice, overall build. The tactile buttons are also very nice. I think that they feel kind of industrial. They have a good feeling to them when you click them back and forth. And, I like the build overall. There are flaws with it, but we'll talk about that in the cons. As far as the internal build quality is concerned, that's where this machine really shines at its price point. This starts at around $400 to $450, depending on, what region you're in. But the internals on this is what some refer to as a prosumer machine. And I think that probably holds up, actually. It is a 3-ounce boiler, which is really small, but it does have a traditional boiler. It's not a thermo block, and it, really heats up nicely. It has a standard, pretty good pump, a vibrator pump. You use that same boiler to create steam, pressure, and all that stuff. So there is a lot of nice things about the internals on this machine. It's not, it's something that's repairable, I guess, is what I would explain to some people. Whereas you might buy like a Breville Bambino and it's not really, once it's broken, you're probably gonna have to throw it away most of the time. You could try to repair it, but this machine you could pop open. I've done it in plenty of videos, and it's not hard to do. I think it's not quite encouraged. You'll probably void a warranty, but it's pretty easy to get inside this machine. So I do like that about it. The other thing I like is the water reservoir. It's a nice big 2-liter water reservoir. You could fill it up pretty easily right here. There is a downside with having to pull out everything to get the actual tank out. But overall, I would say the water tank is a nice pro on this machine, especially for its price and size. Most, water reservoirs on machines this price, this size, are generally like 1.2 to 1.5 liters. This is a nice big 2-liter water tank. Okay, the next thing up to is the overall espresso quality out of this. Can be, it's not necessarily always going to be, obviously there's a lot of learning curves and things like that, but it can be about as good as some of these E61 machines that cost upwards of $1,000, especially if you learn how to really work the temperature surfing and tamp and get everything, right. It sometimes feels like, a lucky draw when you get a perfect shot out of this machine. But if you can really learn the different aspects of it and you can really gauge in how to use it, you can get pretty consistent with it, and it can make really, really great shots of espresso. So that is an overall, huge pro on this machine. And I think that's what brings most people at the end of the day to this machine, is that the quality of espresso can really exceed what I would say is a very low cost price for this. The other pieces that I would say is a really big pro is the steam quality. There is things about it that I don't like, but we'll save that for later. But as far as the steam pressure on this thing, it is hot and fast. When you get that light to turn, red over here, you get really, really strong steam pressure, stronger than even some really higher end machines I would say, on something like this. Now it does start to die off after about 20 seconds, so you do have to learn it. You really have to learn how to use this machine for making steam, but I will say the initial 20 seconds of steaming on this thing is very, very good. So that was a lot of good stuff about the machine, but there is a lot of bad stuff about this machine. So I'm not going to try to hate too much on it because I really think it is a really great machine, but the Gaggia does have a lot of negative things. So let's just start right off the bat with some of the build quality issues. Like I said, I really think there's a lot of nice things here, but there's also a lot of terrible things. So first up, the actual portafilter. Great portafilter, really hefty, all that stuff's great, retains a lot of heat, but come on. This piece of plastic is absolute garbage. I don't know why Gaggia still uses it. People have complained about it for a very long time, and they still refuse to do it. And not only that, this is the aftermarket one that I purchased from Gaggia. This isn't the original one. So even their aftermarket bottomless portafilter is still using this very cheap plastic. I don't know why they continue to do this, and I don't know. It's very frustrating. Another piece that I don't like is the mirror finish on top. It does kind of add to the look and feel of the machine, but it gets dirty, I mean, immediately. It's like you put something on here that even has like a little bit of wetness or something like that, or coffee grounds or anything like that, it just gets really dirty very fast and stuff accumulates. You really have to constantly clean that. And that leads to me, another thing that you have to constantly clean, which is the drip tray here. This is really nice looking and I like it a lot, but the downside is this machine doesn't do a super great job of removing all of the liquid out of your puck after you've pulled the shot using this three-way solenoid valve. It does have it there, but it doesn't do the greatest of jobs. So if you don't immediately knock out your shot, you will accumulate some brown, gross liquid here that'll dry on and really make it unsightly. So there is a constant cleanup if you're not, really no matter what, there's a constant cleanup with this machine. There's not like much you can do about it. The other thing about the drip tray that I don't like is it doesn't give you much room to actually like pull a shot here. Obviously this shot glass works, but if you were to put like a standard mug under there, you don't have a lot of space, especially if you have the spouts. The non-standard, or I should say the standard Gaggia has the spouts on there, and you really just can't fit anything underneath that. The other piece of the drip tray that I don't like is the fact that it doesn't have a drip notification, so you don't have a little flotation device that will come up and show you that that this is full, which is actually kind of standard with these prosumer devices. But when you have something this plasticky and not that great feeling, you would think that, hey, maybe add that feature. And even for those prosumer devices, I still think it's nice to have it. I think they should implement something like that. It's a very simple thing to do, and I think it adds to the ease of use with it. Next up on the kind of con list is the steam wand. So although it is a really great machine to steam on, there are some flaws. The steam wand only turns left to right. I'm sure tons of reviewers have said this, but it is frustrating. Also, something to note is that the angle here is not very good. Even if you can get you can get it in there all right, and you don't have to move it left or right or forward or backward. The angle to me doesn't really hold that well. You really need to kind of angle things so it works nicely. So that's another piece I don't like about it. Also the piece here, again, cheap plastic, and there's not even a good, I haven't been able to find an easily replaceable piece, even though it is very easy to pop this on and off. There's not even really too many aftermarket pieces I could find for that either. So, there's another con there. Okay, so the next and last con about this machine, even though all the internals are very nice on it, there are some big flaws, I think, on this machine that make it very frustrating to use, especially for somebody who's just beginning and they maybe bought this machine not expecting to have to have a new hobby basically. So the first thing is the temperature surfing on this machine is not good. Without the PID, which I did install, I'll link above. You can learn how to install a PID. It's not terribly hard, but you know, whatever. We'll talk about that later. The thing that is really frustrating on this though is the thermostat. It is a thermostat, so it doesn't do a super great job of temperature stability. You have a 10-degree up and down where, you know, you're either at 194-ish to 206 degrees, 205 degrees with your, you know, water actually coming out of this machine. So it is a little frustrating when, you know, you're pulling a shot and you hit certain numbers 1 minute and then the next minute you're hitting totally different numbers because the temperature is all screwed up, and you know that does actually affect flow rate a little bit. So there is downsides with that. The other thing too that I'd like to mention is that out of the box, this is kind of weird, but like James Hoffman has stated in a lot of his, recent videos he's put out, is that many machines come out of the box that are not 9 bar. This is no exception. It needs to be 9 bars. I think it should be 9 bars, but it comes out of the box at 11 bars. Again, I have a link in the above, I should say, where I'll show you how to fix that. And it's not terribly difficult. I think if you are somebody that's going to use the non-pressurized portafilter basket, you need to do that immediately. But this machine just doesn't come out of the box with that pressure set. So I would recommend doing it. It's going to make your espresso extractions probably a little bit better and a little bit more forgiving. And especially if you're using a bottomless portafilter basket, you don't have to worry about as much channeling. When you have that much pressure buildup, a lot of times you get more channeling and more squirting and spurting and stuff like that, as you see with like something like the Breville Barista Express. Okay, so we're gonna make our shot of espresso and kind of assess the flavor and the process of making espresso on this. So if you are without a PID, you know, unfortunately you do have to try to learn that temperature surfing and how to do it. But for me, I have the PID, so it's not that big of a deal. I'm just gonna let a little bit of steam out, and you know, even if you have a PID, you should still do that. Next, we are gonna put in 15 grams into the portafilter. This is actually an IMS basket in here, so you have a really nice basket. And that's the benefit of having a 58 millimeter portafilter, which is kind of nice. All right, so that's in there. Looks pretty good. Gonna give it a little shake. Distribute. And I will do a little tamp. Okay. So that's looking good. What I'm gonna do next is put on my B+ puck screen. This is not needed, but I like it, especially for a machine like this that doesn't have a really nice pre-infusion. If you do, you probably can get away with not using one, but I think it's nice either way. So I am gonna put that in there. It keeps the shower screen really clean. And then I'm gonna weigh out what we're shooting for. That's, again, another downside, like I was mentioning with the drip tray, is it's so close you can't fit a scale underneath there. So you have to weigh it, put it in, and weigh it again. So it makes a little bit of that confusing. So I've tarred this out, and we are gonna pull our shot. My PID doesn't have a timer. You can get them with it, but I'm gonna have to do a timer on my watch. So ready? We're gonna shoot for, we are shooting for a lungo, so that's gonna be like a 1 to 2.5 to 3 ratio in about 28 to 30 seconds. So let's go ahead and do that. Looking good so far. And it all came together at 11 seconds or so. The shot looks great. All right, plenty of crema. All right, we are at 22 seconds, 25, and 28. So, what did we yield out? We did 15 grams in and 36 grams out. So that's a little closer to the espresso range that we were shooting for, but that's okay. I actually think that's, you know, perfectly fine, and it's going to be a very drinkable shot. So don't worry too much too. A lot of people like get really, hung up on the, like how much you put in, how much you get out. As long as it's tasting good and, you have a 30 seconds, you're pushing the liquid through, generally you can get a pretty good shot. But let's go ahead and give it a taste. It's pretty good. It's slightly bitter, and that what's nice too is you can, I have a PID, so you could turn that temp down. I will say in general, the Gaggia seems to run a little hot. So this shot here is slightly more bitter than I think on other machines that have better temperature stability. Nice crema. It actually does have some really nice berry jam flavors. I'm using Equator's coffee. Equator, I think it's the Brazil 48 or something like that. And it's, really good, really not high quality coffee, high quality espresso beans. This is a good shot. And like I was saying with this machine, that's what this is about, is pulling really good shots of espresso. If you can't do that on here, don't buy it. So it is nice that, you can get really high quality shots. Yeah, really great. So if you have any questions about brewing espresso on here, you need some tips or something, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. But for right now, let's jump into the conclusion. All right, so let's give it a conclusion, my final thoughts, and maybe a couple hot takes. So first off, is this machine worth it for $400? It's a hard question to answer because there's a lot of espresso machines in that sort of $300 to $500 price range, and some of them are better with temperature control, but their build quality is worse. Or maybe they have, a nicer steam wand, but again, the espresso portafilter is too small. So I would say you really want to weigh your options. I will say the exact thing that you want to know if you're going to buy this machine, if you want a machine that is going to give you a hobby, this is definitely a hobby at this point because you have to learn how to use this machine. It's not for the faint of heart. You really need to tame the beast, if you will. So if you're okay with that, if you're okay with learning and doing all that stuff, then this is going to be a really great machine. But if you're somebody that's like, oh, I just like the looks of it and I just want to be able to make espresso, you could use the pressurized portafilter basket, but I just don't think it's worth it for you. Look for a different machine, I would say. Maybe get a Bambino or something, because at the end of the day, you want good espresso that isn't too hard to pull and stuff like that. So I would probably look toward that range of espresso machines. As far as the hot take, I would say it's good, but it's not great. It's kind of the right in the middle. I gave it a 7 before, and I'm still giving it a 7 now. So yes, it's a really good machine, but you have to do a lot of work to make it right. You got to kind of break this machine open, void your warranty to make it the perfect espresso machine. Some people will say, if you do all that stuff, it's a $3,000 espresso machine or a $2,000 espresso machine. And honestly, that's kind of bullcrap. It's really not. It is good. The PID makes it a great machine. It makes it a better machine. But honestly, if you're going to spend $1,200 to $1,600 on an espresso machine, you're going to get something like a Rocket Apartmento that looks beautiful, that's stunning, and has what you would expect for $1,000. Whereas even if you fix this up and you can get a nicer shot quality and things like that, it's still not $1,000. Let's be honest. Let's make sure we're keeping that clear. You can make it good though. You can make it better. And the last piece I want to say is that if you do get this machine and you do all the work on it, you're probably at the end of the day going to end up wanting something even better like I did. I ended up getting a Lelit Bianca, mostly because you, the viewer, told me that's what you wanted me to review next, but I was kind of leaning toward an E61 machine either way. So realize that this is sort of a stepping stone, if you will, into your espresso journey, that you'll be yearning to grow and, you know, get better. So I hope that that helped you. I hope you learned a lot, and don't forget to like the video, subscribe to my channel as it helps me out a ton. And if you have questions, again, leave them in the comments below.